What's going on, all my favorite fantasy basketball fans? Happy Monday. It's a beautiful evening here in Texas. I hope everyone is having a great start to your week. I know how you feel about Mondays because I feel the same ways. But nonetheless, I'm going to brighten up the rest of your Monday by giving you a few more players to consider adding via the waiver wire in fantasy basketball. Yesterday, December 5th, I recommended about 12 or 13 players to consider adding. Some of those players had short-term value, others had long-term value, and others had daily fantasy, just one game value. So check out that video. It's out right now. Let's get right into it. I'm Waiver Wire Queen, and I'm just trying to help all of you beautiful fantasy basketball fans continue to compete at the highest level. That is the goal. Several injuries out there. I got a few more players I was thinking about, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to wait. Let's get these players out to everyone who loves playing fantasy basketball and who is competing this week at the highest level or expecting to compete at the highest level. Because again, the goal is to make sure you are positioning yourself to be the best you can be every game and every week. You want to be the winner each week at the end of the games on Sunday. And so let's give you a few more players who should be able to help you. Make sure you check out the video released on Sunday again, because that has a lot of great content and a lot of great players that should be helpful to you this week and going forward. Make sure you hit the like button and you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. All right, y'all. Let's get right into it because we got some football to watch this evening. I got a football game to watch, but before I do that, I'm going to hook y'all up so you guys can prepare to beat your competition this week. And that's what it is. That's what it's all about. So I'm going to give you a few quick players. Denny Abdijah. I probably hacked the name up, but y'all know how I do. Guard/forward with the Washington Wizards. He is a short-term option, not long-term, because they have players who also play the same position and some players who will be returning back, hopefully from injury. Roy Huchimaro, hopefully I pronounce his name right, but nonetheless, y'all know who I'm talking about. But right now, Denny has some great short-term value. He's going to get you between 16 and 18 fantasy points on any given night. He's averaging 6.5 points per game and 5 rebounds, which is solid because some of the players I mentioned yesterday that played similar positions to him, their rebounding totals were a bit lower. So he's at least able to give you some points and some rebounds. He's rostered in 5% of Yahoo leagues. So this is one of those guys that may be able to help you in daily fantasy. If you are loading up on some of your superstars, which you already know, those guys are going to cost you a whole lot of money, then a player like him, his salary is not going to be that high. Or if you are picking him up in one of your leagues, he may be a great option depending on matchups and one game spot starts. He's a spot start. He's not someone that you want to take up a roster slot for more than a few games, but nonetheless, he can help you throughout this week, just depending on matchups. So kind of be careful with that. Let's talk about Lonnie Walker the fourth, guard/forward with the San Antonio Spurs. The biggest thing with him, he is very much inconsistent. It's going to be those games where he's going to be on the high end of 20 plus fantasy points, and there's going to be those games where you're like, did I really put in a claim for that? That's why you got to just know the matchups. And you already know a lot of times with Spurs players, they tend to not play a lot of minutes like other players on other teams. They kind of monitor their players' minutes. And obviously, y'all know load management was the title given because of what the Spurs were doing, letting their guys get some rest and blah, 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 blah. But nonetheless, he has some good value, but it is going to be inconsistent. He's going to get you between 17 and 21 fantasy points on a given night. And again, I will stress this, it's going to be inconsistent, but when you are desperate, he can help. He may be able to help in daily fantasy. However, just be realistic about what he's going to produce for you. If you're going with a player like him, that means you most likely are loading up with some of the more higher caliber superstars whose salaries cost a lot, and you're looking for one of those lower end players whose salary is not going to cost a lot, and he would fit the bill because he can get you a quick 17, 18 fantasy points to help you because you still need the points. Again, he's averaging 10 points, 3 rebounds, and 2.5 assists, which isn't bad. But again, remember, to me, he is not a long-term option. It's short-term, and he's inconsistent, and it's spot starts for me or better suited for daily fantasy. And when I say he's better suited for that, that is because you may be looking for someone whose salary is extremely low because you have used most of your salary on some higher end players who have cost you a whole lot. But nonetheless, he is very inconsistent. I will keep stressing that. So when you pick him up, it may just be because one of your other guys isn't available or there isn't anyone else on waivers. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I'm working the waiver wire and I'm like, oh my God, where is everybody? There's got to be somebody out there. And then you think there isn't, but then you see him. Now, if you have better players on your bench, I wouldn't put a claim in for him. But if you are struggling with injuries and other issues, then he can help you. And again, I will stress, it's going to be inconsistent. You just don't know what you're going to get. You may get a few games where he's playing his tail off, and then you're going to get a few games where you're like, oh, really? Really do? And you're going to want to release him. And I'll say, go on and release him. So for me, he is better suited for spot starts, meaning I don't have anybody else, but I really need points in a points-based league, and I'm going to pick him up and I'm going to utilize him. To me, he doesn't have value in a categories-based league because he's not doing one thing that is so great and superior that he's going to help you in a categories-based league. So in a points-based league, if you are looking strictly for points, then Walker will be able to help you. One game, guys, okay? Don't overdo it. When we overdo it, we end up losing, and we don't lose, right? We winners out here in these fantasy basketball streets. Remember that. That's what I'm talking about. Make sure you subscribe to the Score Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's talk about Matisse Thybulle, guard/forward with the Philadelphia 76ers. Part of me wants to say he has a long-term value, but I think a lot of his value long-term wise is all about what the 76ers do with Ben Simmons. And we already know, we don't know what the heck they're going to do with Ben. They're going to trade him. They want him to come play. They're going to find him. They're going to do a whole lot of different things with Ben, but do what they really should be doing with Ben, and that's trade him. So he has value, but again, he's going to be another one of those guys that is inconsistent. Some nights you're going to be like, okay, yes, good. And then some nights you're going to be like, ooh, and those are nights where you like, throw him on waivers, but we're not going to have nights like that because we're going to identify the game that we are going to utilize him in, use him, and then we're going to move on from him because he's not going to score a whole lot of points, but he'll do a little bit of everything. So he's a stat stuffer on the lower volume. So he'll get you a few points, get you a few rebounds, get you a few assists, get you a few steals, maybe even a block. So it's just a little bit of everything, but at a low level. And I'll tell you, look, he averages 5.9 points per game, 2.6 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, and 1.4 blocks. So that should show you it's on the low end. He should be averaging a whole lot more rebounds because of his size and his defensive capabilities. However, that is not the case. But nonetheless, when you add all of that up, he's averaging he's getting you between 18 and 21 fantasy points in a points-based league, which is still good because there may be that night where you don't have any of your guys. Anything can happen. You chilling in the office at work one day and get that notification. One of your guys is now in the health and safety protocol due to COVID. And you're looking at your bench like, oh my God, I don't have anyone else to play my forward spot because say your other guys are off because scheduling. So you may have to go with him and know that he'll at least, again, like I said, fill up the stat sheet, but at a lower level. It's not going to be fill up the stat sheet where he has like 10 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. Is going to be low. When I say low, don't expect anything over 5. And that's with the points. Everything else would be even lower. But nonetheless, it's all totaling the low end of 18, and then on a higher end, if he has a better night, maybe 2021. But nonetheless, he can help you if you are in trouble. And again, these guys that I am mentioning are players that can help your team because, hey, you're desperate and you need some help. Okay. And we all do. And that's just what it is. It happens every day. I want to say something happens, whether it's your team or someone else's team. But when we are smart managers and we are making sure we know what's going on with everybody else's team, so we could act before they do, because obviously the goal is to win. And sometimes having a strategy, you got to be strategic in what you do. And sometimes being strategic may mean you may be monitoring what's going on with other managers, players in their situations, and that may help you make better decisions on what you are going to do with your lineups, or what players you are going to be considering adding to your roster via waivers, or whatever trade you may consider doing. So let's move right along. Naziri, he was playing very well early on in the season, and I was saying add him, then kind of fell off. He has good value as long as Cat is out. Cat was out the other day. He had a really good game. Nonetheless, he is still in the rotation, so he's still has some value. But if you check out my video I released yesterday, you will see that there were some other centers mentioned that have much better value than Reed. But if Cat ever misses any time, Reed will definitely see an increase in his minutes. He's in the rotation. However, being in the rotation doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be productive, especially if you got Cat ahead of you and you only playing like 15 minutes here. Your minutes are all over the place. But when Cat is out, his minutes are more consistent and he can help your team on those nights. So he still is going to get you between 17 and 20 fantasy points. As a center, he's going to shoot a good percentage from the field. He's averaging 9.2 points, 3.6 rebounds, and 1 block. His rebounds should be much higher. When I look at centers that I am looking for on waivers, I am looking for rebounds in particular. And like I mentioned, Zubac yesterday in my other video on waiver wire ads, he's averaging almost 8-9 rebounds a game. So if I had to choose between Zubac, and he's with the Clippers, and Reed, I'm going to go with Zubac because I'm like, he's going to give me almost a double-double. And there's going to be those nights where he is going to give me a double-double. Now, if he's not available and Reed is the guy you have to go with, and say Cat is out, you already know he is going to exceed his 9 points, 3.6 rebound total. He's going to be more like 12, and maybe he'll get you about 6 or 7, which is good if you are just using him to fill in. So he's definitely a good add if you have Cat and say Cat is out any more time. So you have to just kind of monitor the situation and just understand that also Cat did practice. So you just got to kind of be mindful and make the move when you need it, and then move on from it, because again, there are better centers out there that's going to give you much better production, and we want the best production. We don't care about names, we want the best production. Okay, so let's talk about Cody Martin. Never thought I'd be talking about Cody Martin as an ad, but he has shown me consistency. When I try to recommend players to you, I want to make sure that I am recommending players that are consistent, and they don't necessarily have to be consistent for the whole season. It may be consistency for 3 weeks that is going to help you, because obviously you are considering the whole big picture. You want to be the winner, but you do got to play each week in order to get there. And Cody Martin may be a player that may help you early on in the season. We don't care if a player wasn't good last year or they start out good and they're no longer good. If they are good for a period of time that is going to help us win each week, then that is all we are looking for. And we're not going to keep players on our roster that is taking up space and they're no longer an asset or valuable to us. So with Cody Martin, he has been showing me consistency enough to where I'm like, he can definitely help you, especially in daily fantasy. He can, because again, when I'm recommending a player like him, I'm recommending him based on the fact that his salary is extremely low, so you can load up on your salaries with your more higher end superstar caliber star talent. And he can still help if he's going to get you between 19 and 21 fantasy points, which is what he is doing this season on a nightly basis, which is really good. Understand he is inconsistent because a lot of times he's on Charlotte. You know, you got Melo, obviously, you got Melo, you got Terry, scary Terry. You have other guards who are going to see the bulk of the minutes, and there may be a night where he's not going to get the minutes. But as much as Scary Terry has missed a lot of time this season, and he recently has, he is getting more minutes to fill in that role, and it is helping him and is going to help you on those nights. So any night that you see Scary Terry is going to be out, you know that Cody Martin is going to have a more identified, a more defined role that night. Not a long-term solution, but he's definitely a short-term solution. But do know that during that little short-term solution is going to be one of those nights where you're like, ooh, I shouldn't have started him. So you always got to look at your matchups and know who's playing. Because if Scary Terry isn't playing, or say LaMelo wasn't playing a game, then you know that Martin is going to see more minutes and is going to be beneficial to your team. So what are you going to do? You add him. Again, short term, he's averaging 7.7 points per game, 4 rebounds, 2.2 assists, and 1.3 steals. And look at that. He's averaging 4 rebounds. And then we have Naziri, a center, who's only averaging like 3.6. I mean, it's close to 4, but it's not quite 4. And you want your center to be averaging more than your guards and your forwards. So that's tell you. But again, like I said, very inconsistent. So don't look at him as a long-term solution. These are guys who can help you in the short term. And when I mean short, I mean immediate future right now, based on what is going on with their teams, okay, and matchups, all right? And let's talk about Hernan Gomez from the Pelicans. I'm sure I hacked his name up. He's rostered in 60% of Yahoo leagues. He's getting between 18 and 22 fantasy points on a nightly basis, going to shoot a high percentage from the field. And also he's averaging 6.2 rebounds per game, which is really good for a big. That is good. Again, I can use the example with Nasree, only averaging 3.6. So right there, if you were looking for a center to help you with your rebounds, you're like, well, okay, he's averaging more rebounds on a nightly basis. And just imagine if his minutes were a bit higher. And he's also averaging 8.5 points. So he's also a good add. There's so much just uncertainty with the Pelicans, with Zion, and it's just a hot mess over there. They're going to be obviously at the top of the draft. I don't think they were expecting that when they drafted Zion, but they made terrible moves since then. And now you have players playing who most likely wouldn't have been playing if they would have made better decisions with personnel. But it happens, right? Yeah, it happens a lot to the Pelicans. But nonetheless, it is what it is. But nonetheless, again, he's a player who can help you right now. If nothing else, 8.5 points, 6.2 rebounds. That is good enough production for 1 or 2 nights from a center who can help you when some of your bigs are out. And again, you know the reasons why sometimes your players may no longer be available to you when you thought they were. Easy load management. Obviously, injuries, the one that is it's a consistent thing in all sports. It's just a part of the game. And then also with load management. And then you may just have players who are not scheduled to play, and you're looking at a team that you may be playing this week, and they have more availability from their players, so you have to work the waiver wire to keep up, especially if your commissioner hasn't constructed your league in a way as to which that balances out. That is very complicated because, again, you may have someone who only plays 2 games this week, and they may have a guy on their team, one of their top dogs, who's playing 4. It balances up, but it may not balance up that week. And again, we are trying to win every week. It's not something that's going to happen. It's very impossible, but you want to position yourself to win every week. Not saying that end result is going to be that, but at competing at a high level every week is the goal in fantasy basketball. And another player who's come to mind, I'm going to just mention him, Tyus Jones with the Grizzlies. So Ja's out. We know that Baines has been playing his tail off all season long, and his minutes has increased even more with Ja being out. Jones is filling in nicely to help the Grizzlies out. I mean, they just whipped the living, I don't know what, out of OKC. And I was like, when I seen the score pop, I'm like, well, dang, who they got on the team? Ja is the team, in my opinion, and he not even playing. But when you look at everyone really chipped in, and they, like I said, they beat the, I don't know what, out of OKC. But Jones has great value right now, and it's short-term value. But it's short in a sense that is until Ja comes back. Once he returns, that value is going to decrease because you know that he wasn't seeing the minutes he is seeing right now when Ja was available. But again, that is what we do and what we pay attention to, because it doesn't mean anything if you just let a player stay on waivers and let someone else pick him up. You pick him up whether you have Ja or not. If you're trying to position yourself to win, just because a player is injured on your team does not mean you can't go for their backup to help your team. Because what if that player may be a good pickup for the next few weeks to help your team, because you may be struggling in, say, assists, and he's getting you more assists, or rebounds, and so he's getting you more rebounds. So just because a player is out and their backup is elevated and you don't have any ties to these players. You always have ties to every player, okay? In my opinion, you do, because, for instance, say someone I was playing against this week has, say, example, LeBron James, and say LeBron is out, right? Maybe I'm looking at that like, oh, well, maybe I can go pick up Horton or someone who's going to be playing in replace of LeBron. I'm not going to just be like, oh, well, okay, I don't have LeBron, so that doesn't affect me. Yes, it does, because that may help you pick up a player who is going to help you win over the next few games. So never look at it as, well, I don't have Ja, so he's out, but I don't have him, so I don't have to go for his backup. No, you have every right to go for his backup, and you should, because that's going to help you potentially. What if you have been struggling at the guard spot and now a player is available to you at the guard spot? That's why I say you always got to be ahead of the game, and part of that is researching. As soon as you get a notification that a player is out and you know that their backup is going to be elevated and starting to see more minutes and elevated to the starting lineup or whatever the case may be, you go on and put a claim in for that player, because again, that player may help your team win. And that is the ultimate goal, is to position yourself to win each week. And sometimes picking up a player who doesn't have ties to you because, oh, he's just filling in for an injured player who's not on my team. Every player has ties. You have ties to everybody. Okay. It's all connected, because at the end of the day, everyone's going to be trying to go for the same players, right? So why not be ahead of your competition? That's what we always say. Stay ahead of your competition so you can position yourself to win. And sometimes picking up a backup for a player who's injured is going to help you win. And if the manager didn't pick that player up and their player is injured, now they don't, that's on them. They don't have their replacement. Oh, that's not your responsibility to say, oh, well, let's let the manager of this team pick him up, because no, you gotta worry about what you have to do. Your goal is to make sure that you are doing what you need to do to win. And it's nothing wrong with picking up a player that somebody else may want, because they're gonna pick up a player that you may want. So being ahead of the competition and knowing that, okay, I see so-and-so is looking like he's not going to play, and this player that's going to replace him in the starting lineup is going to be a valuable asset to my team. I'm going to pick him up. That's what you got to do, because that's really what everyone is thinking. Like, no one is going to say, well, oh, waiver wire queens players are like, I have Ja in the league. I didn't get a chance to pick up Jones, but I mean, I had another player to replace him, so I didn't have to. But do you really think that anyone in the league was like, well, let's let waiver wire queen pick him up because Ja is out? No, somebody done went and snatched up Jones before I could even think about it. But I didn't really consider it because I had someone to slide right in his place. But what if I didn't? Then I would just have to look elsewhere. And that's what I'm just trying to tell you guys. Don't wait for other people to act or make moves. Be ahead of your competition. Again, we always say stay ahead of your competition so you can position yourself to win. All right, y'all. Again, happy Monday. I hope you are having a great start to your week. Make sure you hit the like button and you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. And again, check out my video I released on Sunday with other great players you should consider adding this week via the waiver wire. A lot of these players will help you short-term and long-term. And also, if you are a fan of listening to podcasts on Spotify, Apple, Google, then check out the Score Fantasy Basketball Podcast. And make sure you let everybody know about the Score Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Y'all have a great evening. Peace.
Thanks for listening to The Score Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to The Score for more fun and great advice on how to win at fantasy basketball. And if you've got comments or questions about The Score, send them to waiverwirequeen@gmail.com. The Score.